Hello all, my name is Brittany Jackson and this is my Module 2 presentation on integers under subtraction. So the first thing that stuck out to me in this week's lesson was the term takeaway, which I hear a lot of my students use when talking about either subtracting or when they should be using the word minus to describe the operation happening under subtraction. A lot of them do say take away. They'll say instead of 6 minus 5, they'll say 6 take away 5. I understand that this terminology is, I guess, antiquated for them. It would have been how they first learned subtraction. But I also do find it to be a difficult idea to constantly keep up with the ever-changing terminologies in math. For example, how students start learning equations and then equations lead them into functions, which are very similar but an entirely different concept. Exponents to learning the term degrees, and having all of these different terms build on each other, I understand helps build their understanding, but it also can lead to some confusion and some overlapping terms that are very similar. This isn't something, well, this is definitely something that I would correct. If I hear a student say 6 take away 5, I would definitely say, 6 minus 5, just to reinforce the actual terminology that they should be using. But I actually didn't realize that they said that because that is how they first started learning subtraction. So it's actually quite nice to know that what they learned in elementary school is still sticking with them through high school. My second takeaway is that we should not be saying a negative is the same as subtracting. So we talked about what students shouldn't say. They shouldn't be saying things like take away instead of minus. We as teachers should not be teaching students that a negative is the same as subtracting. And actually, just today, I was going over a problem and I thought about what we learned this week. And I was doing something on the board, an example on the board, and I said, adding a negative is the same as subtracting. And I had to catch myself and ask my students, do you guys understand conceptually why adding a negative is the same as subtracting? I know we spoke last week about how they should really understand the mathematical concept regarding additive inverses, but because I was just making sure that they understood, I used money, which I spoke about last week in my presentation, and just asked them, I was like, do you understand that if I add $200 of debt to your bank account, that you are losing money? And they understood that concept. I also asked somebody else about well, I'll actually talk about that later. So they understood the concept of adding a negative being the same as subtracting. I also asked them if they understood subtracting and negative numbers to be equivalent to doing the opposite, and they said that they did understand. So that was a positive takeaway for me today. The third takeaway that I got from this week's lesson is that basically everything that students learned about addition and the properties of integers under addition do not apply to the properties of integers under subtraction, and that could be super confusing because they just don't translate. So I definitely understand, and I personally appreciate teaching subtraction as adding a negative, because addition is just so much easier to work with. There's so much more of a foundation and a basis in addition when it comes to our understanding of mathematical operations, that I think that it's more helpful to use addition, especially since we can apply it entirely to subtraction. The fourth thing that I took away from this lesson is this portion of the lecture video actually really confused me. It was around the 15-minute mark, and we were showing several different ways on how that term like takeaway does not apply to subtraction after a certain point when you're using manipulatives, because you can't physically take away 6 manipulatives from 5. So you have to add additive inverses or zero pairs in order to create that. My issue with this section or this portion of the lecture was that we went from 5 minus negative 6 to 5 plus 0. And that didn't quite translate for me. And it actually really confused me. That whole portion of the lecture really confused me. Um, and it was really that 5 plus 0 step. It didn't make any sense for me to go from 5 minus -6 to 5 plus 0. Um, I understood the basic concept, but I think that me as a student and the way that I learn and the way that I understand this concept and this method of teaching would definitely confuse me. And I don't think that it would aid in my understanding. I definitely think that teaching money would be a lot more useful here. Just because it's more of a concept. So I think that instead of using actual tangible physical objects like manipulatives, we should work more with concepts like money. So this actually brought me back to kind of trying to recall my own personal relationship with learning this concept. I don't remember how I learned addition and subtraction of negative numbers, but I would use a number line and I would use the conceptual understanding that 0 means nothing and that negative numbers are just less than nothing. So negative numbers are less than 0. And I think that I would use, again, like a number line, which is a concept. I would use money, which is a concept, to teach the conceptual understanding of these operations of integers under addition and subtraction as opposed to actual manipulatives, because I think that just gets a little convoluted. I also asked one of my friends today how they learned it, and they said that they learned this process using money as well, and that was very helpful. It was very effective, and they remember a lot of what they learned. So that was my presentation. Thank you all for watching.